And we are back in the world of Great Conqueror Rome. Well, we're looking at some trips which I came up with all by myself, so you should be thankful. First of all, we start off with the part of the game which is very, very important, that is the generals. Now, I, in the beginning myself, was unsure, but if you go new generals, your commander or your Armenius or whoever, you can rank up their skills if they gain level ups. So you can invest your capability points, and that's just per general, it's not overall, so it doesn't make sense to save them up. And invest them wisely, so add them in the spots where they really are needed. For example, I now trained my commander to be an archer guy, so I put everything in archery. Now I'm building up his navy skill. Infantry and cavalry are absolutely useless with him. I'm not going to invest anything in him. Next tip, we have the inventory. So you should add your equipment to generals. It's small buffs, but they're quite useful. So for example, the gladius gives +6 attack. Is 6 attack plus. And what you should do is add banners. But banners is a bit of a tricky thing, because they only make the existing skill stronger. So I can't add Hydra counterattack because my guy doesn't have Hydra counterattack, so it's no use. That's important. Don't just add your banners randomly, even though you won't add skills, it just makes pre-existing ones better. And yeah, the last tips of a general is play to their strengths. So for example, my commander has jungle fighting, so where I put him? In the forest. He has besiege, that means he'll deal more damage to smaller units, so attack smaller, build his unit up, make it a big unit. His accuracy, which means you deal more damage to cavalry, so attack cavalry. You see what I'm going at. So you should play to their skills. For example, then Pompey is a plane fighter, so I'll attack on the plane, I will use march, so he's a fast guy, that's why I got him. And yeah, just look for what they're good and use them at what they're good, because otherwise they'll be weak. So for example, if you add Pompey to an archer, he'll do some work, but mostly he'll be strongest on infantry, so add him there. Next thing is you look at the Senate tips. Now, tip number 1 is you should upgrade, first of all, your barracks, your port, fields of Mars and Colosseum to get the higher skills, but be wary because there are limits. The way I've heard it is you can only level up your infantry 5 times, and you can only level up your cavalry and archery 4 times and navy 4 times. So be very wary. I wasted some health, sadly, on generals, which was a mistake. I didn't notice back then, but I would now invest it probably in attack, mobility, possibly defense for infantry. Next skill, which isn't directly in the Senate, but it's basically in the Senate, it's the expeditions. Expedition to Africa, what I found pretty hard is in the expedition of Africa, I only managed the expedition to Africa and I had 3 generals, so take your time with this. Didn't get a little screen. And I got a bit of gold, but I thought you get the Africanus uniform, but well, yeah, I have to divide it up. Maybe it's only after the conquest of Africa, but little tip there. On the other hand side, go in the shop, look at that. I mean, now I'm offline because I don't want to get messages. But you look at the shop once in a while and see if you have any good items. And look what is in your inventory and look at it. Here's still the skills. And yeah, this time upgrading skills doesn't cost medals, but it costs scrolls. So make sure to spend them wisely. And because of that, because of the scroll thing, I didn't get too much jungle fighter. So my commander's jungle fighter. Actually, jungle's the best terrain skill. But I only have 2 generals now, and that's why I got Pompey, was plane fighting. Just a little tip still to add. Now the most important tip is go on generals and get yourself a good, strong penis. I love this guy. I'll really get him when I have the medals. Get yourself a good, strong penis, which is very durable. He's a mountain and can go quite a far stretch. I'm just gonna stop it there. Yeah. Next tip is in the conquest. So I noticed in the Punic Wars, the Carthage has a clear advantage. You see already that the conquest was Carthage and Massili, and that it was Illyria. So yeah, it shows you that these guys are pretty doable. On the Rome side, kind of playing Rome itself might make sense, or maybe Lusitania. Just usually pick those, as always in conquests, pick the sides which are which are usually doing very bad in the conquest. So for example, Lusitania always dies, so playing Lusitania makes sense. Rome always sucks, so play Rome. Yeah, makes sense, right? If you play against Rome, for example, Illyria, I did this yesterday, you can bamboozle Rome. So Rome, I don't know why, they focus all their army on Syracuse, and then you can destroy Rome. I took Dyrrhachium, basically Albania, Tarasaticum, Slovenia, and Aquileia. All of these I took easily, and even managed to take Ravenna, but then all these French nations came to destroy me. But till then, you can bamboozle Rome really fast. Now, another tip is, let's just take an example thing. If you usually end turns and then you start with a new turn, then sometimes you get the suggestion to pay a guy to fight on your side, but he likely will almost never fight on your side, and it will cost you so much gold. So don't waste time on him. The only thing it does is it stalls the guy. I'm not sure what it's basically this kingdom here, which then will join against you, but it doesn't make sense to pay them because you pay so much and you get so little for it. They will then join later on against you, but well, deal with it. And sadly, if you look at the conquests, they overall give a very small reward. You get 20 to like 30 gold. Maybe in siege time you get a little bit more, but it's very badly rewarded. So I'd rather advise you to play conquests, campaigns. Conquest only later on makes sense if you just want to play it for the fun, but sadly reward-wise, it's not really worth it anymore. The thing is, you still get some good banners. So for to get banners, it's worth it. But yeah, otherwise I don't really see the benefit. And another thing is, if you do a conquest, you can't reduce the same nation and get medals. So the whole auto-conquest is useless and dead. Rest in peace, auto-conquest. And another important part of playing conquest is upgrading your... If you click the top left, you have national technology. You should upgrade that. It will take you scrolls. So what I usually do is I build up the money makers. So for example, irrigation and trade routes make sense. Philosopher also can make sense early on. Yeah, these things, and then you go for other. Then I usually go for library stuff, for poetry, which gives you more, I guess, knowledge point thingies. And yeah, only then you can go for the army thing. And what I usually prefer to do is get governor quite fast, because then you'll be able to use the forced march strategy. Super useful. Second chance to operate a legion. With archers especially, it's so good. You can just pump out damage. Now let's go over to the campaign tips. For campaign, I'm not good. Gallic Wars. For campaign, the first thing you do if you join a campaign, you go into national technology and you look, do you have Imperial Guard? It's such an interesting and important skill to have, because it allows maximum troop number, which means that you can actually get more taxes. It only costs technology, so make sure you have this skill. Really make sure you have it. And if you don't have that, I would look if you have the governor skill, because then you can use forced march. If you have forced march, use it regularly, especially if you have good generals. It's so valuable. Plus, what I usually mostly use arson, destroy, orientation sometimes, and forced march. Reds I never really used, but well. Now, obviously, if you started conquest, let's quickly restart this, just so you can see how it is. I usually do tend to quickly read the instructions, what it tells you. So, for example, good notice, all fighting in the beginning is not super important. But what does make sense is, can you just hurry up, please? Okay, now this time I just give a text, okay. So, Avaricum is easily defended and difficult to attack. Direct siege will lead heavy losses, capture surrounding towns and besiege the city defenders first. So there's a good message. Go for the cities around it first and then go for Avaricum, because it's so heavily defended. Read the text, it'll give you tips sometimes, which are really useful. Then you start the game and you look, you have starting units. These units may mostly have some kind of experience, so you add your strongest generals to them. Makes sense, right? So first you put the strongest generals on the best units. That kind of adds to point 3, which I made as generals use them to their strengths. Then, if you somehow would fail a campaign, which can happen sometimes, I also failed them once in a while. It's no biggie. Just review them and you'll see there's certain patterns in conquests. Certain campaigns need like 4 or 5 tries till you actually get the 3 stars. Not that bad. Retry, learn, get better. If you really are stuck somewhere, so for example, if you have this conquest gem right on Siege of Avaricum without be super stuck here, I haven't yet tried it. Then what can make sense is go back, finish the campaigns there. Maybe if you're stuck there as well, try Conquest, change the sides, play as the enemy side, get some medals there, upgrade your generals, get them experience, make them stronger. Makes sense, right? Also, it is a very useful tip, is mostly there's some kind of yellow circles in campaigns. Now this one there are none, but sometimes cities have yellow circles. Go on them, you get rewards, easy rewards. Oh, another tip which I should also mention is, even in campaign you have again the rewards. Mostly this rewards thing will start showing around, like for example now it shows that I have completed a suppression mission. Just go and get your rewards, otherwise why you do everything here? And an easy tip is, if you're fighting, follow the simple instruction. Infantry attacks archers, archers attack cavalry. So if I take this guy out at my general commander, put him on the forest because he's stronger, has a bigger unit, look what he'll damage. Damage really good. So archery attacks cavalry, cavalry attacks infantry, infantry attacks archers. It's a very simple A beats B, B beats C, C beats A table, which you'll be able to figure out. I hope these tips are useful to you. I hope those aren't too advanced, and if there's interest for more, maybe we'll find some more tips. Yeah. Have a nice and bye.